All right. Can you guys hear me now? How you like me now? There's audio. Up. Like, oh, we have audio now. We're good. All right, again, guys. Welcome to Truth and Transparency. It is a Sunday all day, June 22nd, 2025. This episode is for those that follow the Idaho4 case, and you have to be kind of in depth to understand it. This is the cross-examination of Special Agent Rob Hille, and it is from material that is the Exhibit A, working affidavit from Payne, the order of defendant's motion limine, make and model of the suspect vehicle from Judge Hibbler, and from the state's response to defendant's motion on limine number 12, make and model of suspect vehicle by Ashley Jennings. So again, this episode's for you if you've been following this case. Hi, Marky. I know we have audio. We should be good. We should be good. Now, let me go back up. Okay. There we go. Perfect. When people come in, they know what's going on. Never sounded better. Here we go. Again, this is one of the biggest, I think, cross-examinations that's going to be happening in the case besides Bethany and Dylan. Right. So, Special Agent Hille will be taking the stand. He is considered an expert in his field. He'll be taking the stand as a witness for the prosecution. The reason I'm not doing that portion of it is because this is a cross-examination. So if you would know his report, that's what he'll be testifying to. So I'm treating this as just the cross-examination. Here it is. Well, good morning, Agent Hille. Good morning. Mr. Hille, or Special Agent Hille, maybe I missed it on direct examination, but what time does your report mention the time of the crime? It doesn't. Okay. And in your report, does it mention the time of death? It does not. Okay. Special Agent Hille, I want to break down your involvement in this case by sections. So, first of all, when did you get first called by the Moscow Police Department to come in and be part of this case? And who called you? And what type, was that a call, I should say, or what type of communication was that? Was it email, telephone? Okay. And then you were tasked with the duty or role to review surveillance camera footage. Is that correct? Is that right? Okay, so I want to break down all of the material that you were provided with in this case and the dates of when you were provided the material, okay? So looking at page 1 of your report, you're listing off addresses, but nowhere in your report does it say, I received this 787 video on this day from this person, correct? I want to point out for the jury, there's 2 dates associated with your report. Is that correct? And date number 1 is at the bottom of the first page. And it says drafted. Do you see that there on the right? 2/6/2023. Is that correct? And then Is that when you began working on this? And then up top, it says entry, date of entry 5/1/2023. So that would be when you submitted the report. Is that correct? Okay. To not bore any of our viewers, you would go through and get all the dates and of when he was provided this information, or if he's saying that you're provided all of this, all the videos, all at the same time. But I'm not going to bore us with that repetitive question. Next, so going through your report, for example, your report does not mention any police body cameras that you would have used. Is that correct? On November 13th, 2022, you had no body cameras from the police officers that were working. And did you use any police dash cam video? No. No. Okay. Were you aware that officers were working that evening undercover and wearing police body cams? And Agent Hill, where do you currently reside? Do you live in Moscow, Idaho, or do you live somewhere else? Okay. And this is where you resided prior to the murders, somewhere else, correct? And then once the murders happened, did you move to Moscow, Idaho temporarily to work? Were you located while working on this case at the Moscow Police Department? Did you work remotely? Okay. Prior to the murders, were you ever in Moscow, Idaho? Are you familiar with the area? And then after the murders and you got involved in this case, did you then acquaint yourself by coming to Moscow, Idaho to get familiar with the area? I noticed your exhibits, you relied upon Google Maps. Is that correct? And is that because you only relied on Google Maps? Did you ever drive the area? Were you briefed on this case during the investigative phase from November 13th, 2022 to December 29th, 2022? Were you involved in any of those? Debriefing sessions in the morning and the evening? We're going to talk about how you obtained this camera footage that you used to write up your report. You, for the record, did not physically go and get any of the cameras that you used. You didn't physically go and get them from the residential or the commercial property, correct? Did you sign out any of the videos that you used? Did you physically sign those out of evidence? Were you given working copies from somebody? We're going to talk about how all of that happened. Now, I noticed on your report here, you didn't document when you received the items and who you received those items from, correct? So is there another report where that information can be found, memorializing that? Okay. Agent Hill, we're going to look at your report here in connection with the homicides. And just to be clear, you authored only one report, this report, or were there others? All right, so we're going to treat this as the state's exhibit 2, I believe is what it is. Okay. And we just talked about the dates. So I just want to be very clear about this. Are you aware that my client, Mr. Kohberger, was arrested on 12/30/2022? And that would be 6 weeks before you began to work on your surveillance review report that this is labeled. Is that correct? And you actually entered it into, I don't know, you turned it on over on 5/1/2023, and that would be about 6 months after the murders, correct? And that would be after my client was arrested. So simply put, Special Agent Hill, this report didn't exist prior to the arrest of my client, correct? And so therefore, Moscow Police Department couldn't have relied upon something that didn't exist yet, correct? So, Special Agent Hill, it wasn't until after you knew that my client owned a white 2016 Hyundai Elantra that you began your work on this case for this report. Is that correct? Looking at your report, you don't specifically state who collected the videos that you reviewed, correct? Special Agent Hill, I noticed next to each video that you didn't collect, you were provided or you are providing information that the camera time is accurate to local time, or, for example, 1311 South Main Street, you note that the camera time is approximately 1 minute and 43 seconds behind the local time. Do you see that? And that would not be your information, correct? You were provided that information. Isn't that true? And who were you provided that information from? So you were relying on another person's accurate reporting. But nowhere in this report do you state who did that work, right? And when you were provided that work, as far as the times being off. Okay. So, how did you know that the videos are a true and accurate representation of what was captured the night in question? Are you the only special agent who reviewed this material and authored any report about what was entailed in these videos as far as a special agent from the FBI, correct? Now, I don't know how this works, so help me out here, Special Agent Hill. The date here, 5/1/2023, and that you started working on this February 6th, 2023. Was your work like peer reviewed or anything? Or did it take you, February, March, April, 3 months to complete this? Okay. Are you aware, Special Agent Hill, of an Exhibit A that was used in connection with the arrest of my client, authored by Detective Payne? Are you aware, Detective Hill, of this Exhibit A? Pages 5, 6, 7, where it mentions a review of camera footage indicated that a white sedan, hereafter suspect vehicle 1, was observed traveling westbound in the 700 block. And it goes on to talk about all of basically what is in your report here on pages 5, 6, and 7 of Exhibit A. That was a working live document from November 13th, and then put in as an exhibit for search warrants in this case. And just to be clear here, it's impossible that Detective Payne could have used your report and your findings in a report to author this document that came out in November and December of 2022 for search warrants in this case, correct? Now, back to your report here. Special Agent Hill. Okay. You indicate that you did not just rely on surveillance cameras, but it was also in conjunction with other investigative leads for the purpose of attempting to identify and locate a suspect and or suspect vehicle. Is that right? We're going to zoom in here for you. This is not a memory test, Detective or Special Agent Hill. So right here, throughout the course of the investigation, investigators performed an extensive canvass of Moscow, Idaho. When you get to the part, which is the second paragraph, if you can go ahead and take a peek at that and look up when you're familiarize yourself with that. So what do you mean by other investigative leads? Well, for example, Special Agent Hill, would that include, or that be investigative leads? Would that be the text messages of Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen? And Special Agent Hill, wasn't my client already arrested prior to this review of surveillance work that you did in connection with this case? Special Agent Hill, are you familiar with the term confirmation bias? Detective or Special Agent Hill, what does, in your expert opinion, does the term confirmation bias mean to you? So going back to your report again, the second paragraph on the first page, again, if you can review that and look up when you're done. So can you explain to the jury what you meant when you wrote, through this surveillance review and a review of other investigative leads, a suspect vehicle identified as a 2011-2016 white Hyundai Elantra, hereafter referred to as Vehicle 1, period. What is that? That's an incomplete sentence, isn't that correct? Period. So can you tell us what that sentence means? It seems to be an incomplete sentence, correct? Would you agree with me on that? Would you quarrel with that? Okay. The next sentence directly after that incomplete sentence states, additionally, a subject was identified as Brian Kohberger. Special Agent Hill, what was the purpose of this review if Mr. Kohberger was already identified as a subject, as indicated on your report, paragraph 2, who lived in the Pullman area, owned a vehicle that matched the criteria of the suspect vehicle, and was already arrested for the murders? Special Agent Hill, the information that you keep referring to as investigative leads, as in plural leads, did any of those leads include using and considering the victim's Apple Health data from watches or cell phones? In my report, no. How about their cell phones, period? The victim's cell phones, period. In my report, no. So everything you relied upon had to do with the surviving roommate's cell phone, specifically text messages. Isn't that correct? Is that right? Special Agent Hill, you've been qualified as an expert in your field for many years, correct? And with this case, well, strike that. In other cases that you've ever been a part of, have you ever been known to have a motor vehicle be the, I guess you could say, for lack of better words, the murder weapon? Or yes, I have. Okay. And in this case, the vehicle has nothing to do with the actual physical crime, correct? Is that the murder weapon here? No. Okay. So, Special Agent Hill, does your report mention any license plates? No. So, during your review of all of the camera footage that you wrote down on pages 1 and 2 in your report, you don't come across reviewing any of that footage and seeing any license plates. Okay. How about any identifying vehicle marks? Special Agent Hill, on page 2. Oh, maybe apologize. Page 3. Why does your report begin at 3:26 a.m. with your review? And that would be an address in Moscow, Idaho, correct? Where you begin? Okay. Special Agent Hill, are you aware that my client lives in Pullman, Washington at the time of the crime? Okay. Special Agent Hill, do you know Special Agent Nicholas Ballance? And are you aware that Special Agent Nicholas Ballance worked on this case? And did you work with Special Agent Nicholas Ballance in this case? Okay. Did Special Agent Nicholas Ballance provide you with any material for your report to consider? All right, we're going to come back to some questions about Special Agent Ballance here in a second. Special Agent Hill. Special Agent Hill, so a vehicle just starts its day in the middle of a road at 3:26 a.m. and meaning the jury, are we supposed to know whose vehicle that is that just is in the middle of the road? Where did the 3:26 and 10-second a.m. car come from? Did you ask MPD if they went around the area of what was that? 787 Indian Hills Drive to obtain other cameras to see where that vehicle in fact originated from? So, isn't it true that we have no idea where this 3:26 and 10-second AM car originates, correct? You don't have it pulling out of a driveway, correct? You don't have it entering the city of Moscow from one of the main entrance streets into the city between 3 a.m. and 3:26 a.m.? How about between 2:52 a.m. and 3:26 a.m.? Special Agent Hill, is there normally a lot of traffic in Moscow, Idaho between 3 a.m. and 4:30 a.m.? Are you aware? Special Agent Hill, when you were doing your report, did you ask for other days of the week around the time of the crime during that same time period to compare the traffic flow? Or how about the previous weekend to compare another Saturday traffic flow? Now, according to your report, you wrote down that you were marking down timestamps that had to do with individuals who matched the description of my client, Mr. Kohberger. Is that right? And can you do me a favor and look through your report beginning on this page and tell me the page number and the timestamp of the first date and timestamp that you see or you refer and you write down seeing a person matching the description of my client? Okay, yep, I have it. Okay. And can you state that for the jury, please? 12:34 and 15 seconds. In the afternoon, PM, November 13th, 2022. And the address, please? 301 5th Street, Clarkson, Washington. Okay. And is there a known location with that address? Costco. Okay. And did you say Clarkson, Washington? Okay. So between 3:26 a.m. and 12:34 in the afternoon, there were no sightings of anyone matching the description of my client in any of the cameras that you reviewed. Is that right? What about people that weren't matching the description of my client? Did you note that anywhere? Do you recall going through the cameras in general and actually seeing individuals in general during this pertinent time frame that you've labeled and marking down, hey, I see an individual, but I can't tell who it is. So it would be like a question mark, more or less, like I can't rule it out, I can't rule it in. And then who determined that this was the pertinent time again that you were provided these videos? And again, you just said at 12:34 p.m., that was the first time that you have a sighting of a quote unquote an individual matching the description of Kohberger enters the main entrance to Costco. And is Costco part of the murder scene? Okay. How many miles is Costco from the murder address 1122 King Road? And that's a grocery store, is that correct, Costco? Okay. When did you obtain this footage from the Costco grocery store? Do you have any idea when the person that did obtain it got it? And again, who did you get this from? Okay, just to make sure the jury is aware and we have this correct, the only way that you could have done this review would have been after you were given my client's picture. Is that correct? So prior to December 19th, 2022, this tool known as a neighborhood canvassing and surveillance review, it wasn't utilized as a source to develop any leads. In fact, it was only used as a way to back up law enforcement's theory of the case, correct? Are you aware, Special Agent Hill, that my client wasn't identified until December 19th, 2022? Is that correct? Are you aware of that? When were you given a picture of my client, Special Agent Hill? What picture and by whom? Who gave you that? Okay. Did you put that in your report? That this is the picture that you went with? So you went through all of those cameras looking for someone that looked like my client, correct? Do you know how many hours of surveillance video that is? And you couldn't find my client in any of the several hundred hours of video that you went through until you get all the way out to Clarkson, Washington at a Costco grocery store at 12:34 in the afternoon. Is that correct? Are you aware that the dean of students, Dean Eckel, was also at the Clarkson Costco grocery store the morning of the murders? Objection. Relevancy. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Your Honor. I mean, if it's relevant that someone's at Costco, it's relevant that the dean's at Costco. Okay. Are you aware that Costco does not keep their cameras past 30 days? Special Agent Hill? That is not true. Just to have to throw in a funny moment there. Special Agent Hill, going back to this, based on other investigative leads in conjunction with like the cameras, were you asked by your superior to look for a individual that was wearing a balaclava mask and all black? No. In reviewing the material, you didn't come across anybody that was dressed in all black and a mask, balaclava, all black mask. And when you saw my client at Costco, was he dressed in all black and in a balaclava? Okay. Were you asked by your superiors to look through the videos and to see if there was anybody possibly disguising themselves? Wearing like a hood up, trying to duck any cameras or anything like that? Okay. And I'm assuming every clip that you have here in your report, did you personally make a clip of each timestamp or was that provided to you by somebody else? back to my client's description, Special Agent Hill. Where in your report do you mention what description you were given or what picture you used? And just to be clear, did you come across anyone matching that description? No. How about all black with a black mask? No. How about anybody who was dressed like a firefighter? No. Or anyone carrying a vacuum? No. And just to be clear, nobody knew of my client's name prior to December 19th, 2022. Is that correct? And Special Agent Hill, between December 19th, 2022 and December 23rd, 2000, I actually go December 22nd, 2022. Did you provide a rough report like this to Officer Payne? Special Agent Hill, are you aware that in a search warrant or multiple that went out on December 23rd, 2022, that your basic outline of all those cameras and that was included in Detective Payne's exhibit? Have you ever talked to Detective Payne? So just to clarify, Special Agent Hill, did you have any role in identifying a 2011 to 2016 white Honda Elantra? And you knew prior to doing your work that you were being asked for the assistance in identifying a car? Or did they already tell you this is the car, track it all the way back? Special Agent Hill, are you aware of my client's address? Is my client's address within your report? Are there any addresses or timestamps prior to 3:26 and 10 seconds in your report? No, that's my first one. So you are aware that my client lives in Pullman, Washington, and in order to have made it at this point at 3:26 and 10 seconds and that be his vehicle, he would have had to bring that from Pullman, Washington. Is that correct? And you couldn't find any matching vehicles prior to that out of Pullman or in Moscow before this point. Isn't that correct? Out of all the cameras that you utilize for your review, are there any cameras that are bordering, neighboring the Washington-Idaho border? Going back to Special Agent Nick Ballance. Actually, one second first. Hold on. Special Agent Hill, are you aware of a DoorDash driver the night of the murders? Are you aware of what time the DoorDash driver delivered food to the house? During or in your report, rather, do you identify that DoorDash driver? So, for example, Special Agent Hill, when you're looking at page 8 of your report, and it says a vehicle matching the description of vehicle 1 travels west on Queen Road and turns north onto King Road. Headlights can be seen shining trees to the west of the intersection of King Road and Taylor Avenue, indicating the vehicle turned west onto Taylor Avenue. And then at 3:59 in 4 seconds, well, going back up to 3:58 in 23 seconds, you have a timestamp that's before the 3:58 in 23 seconds. Is that correct? Yes, 3:57, 27 seconds. Okay, so they're a minute apart. Okay. I want to look at the 3:57:27. That would be the vehicle that you say is consistent with matching the description of vehicle 1, my client's, correct? And that said, when it first initially enters at 3:56, a vehicle matching the description of vehicle 1 travels south on King Road and turns east onto Queen. So that would be by way of passing by the house, correct? At 3:56 and 24 seconds. Is that correct? Okay. And this would be a vehicle that's matching the description of the vehicle 1, correct? Which is the 2011-2016 white Honda Elantra, correct? Okay. Then at 3:56 and 57 seconds, you're utilizing the Linda Lane video. Is that correct? And now Linda Lane actually has 2 cameras. Is that correct? One is from a view that you can see cars coming and turning around and going around the 500 Queen buildings, correct? And then there's another angle that they call the dumpster angle, and that points out to Taylor. Is that correct? Are you aware that your report only has one video from the dumpster angle of Taylor, and that's at 3:30 a.m.? Do you have any Linda Lane dumpster video between after 3:30 a.m. to 4:06 a.m.? Not that I put in my report, no. Is that because it doesn't exist, or is that because it wasn't pertinent? So you weren't tracking any vehicles between 3:30 and 4:06 from Taylor Avenue using the dumpster Linda Lane cameras, isn't that correct? Even though that's the first video that you used was saying that the car came to the area. Are you aware of that? At 3:20, or I'm sorry, yeah, 3:29 and 48 seconds, the first, it says dumpster Linda Lane, 3:20 or 13:20. A vehicle matching the description of a vehicle one. Is that accurate? Is that report? Is that a typo at all? Okay, if we can go ahead and show clip 3:29 and 48 seconds. Go ahead and pause there. Special Agent Hill, are you saying that from that video, you can tell what the description of that vehicle is? During the time that you were using all these cameras, were you also using the audio? Well, yeah, I think that's part of the investigative leads. And that would be coming from 1112, the thud at 417. Is that correct? Yeah. So I noticed in your report you didn't write down that you hear screaming and anybody crying out for help during that time period, correct? But you heard a thud, but you heard no screaming during that time period, correct? Prior to 417, between 3:29 and 4:17. Isn't it true, Special Agent Hill, that there is no way to tell what vehicle that is at 3:29 a.m.? From that view, no. But once it comes up and it comes past then the house at 1112, we put those two together. Okay. Perfect. So you used this Linda Lane footage and you backtracked, right? Because you actually worked from the 1112 and then timed it up to say, okay, that has to be that car, right? Because that's so many seconds, right? Okay. So going back to my original question here is why then wouldn't you utilize the 1320 Linda Lane camera after 3:29 and 48 seconds? Between 4 o'clock and 14 seconds and 4:01 and 30 seconds. You said the headlights are seen traveling north on Valencia Drive behind 1119 King Road. That would have been after leaving. Headlights are seen traveling south on Valencia Drive behind 1119 King Road. Now, you are aware that you're saying what comes between 1112 King Road and 11125 Ridge Road? What comes between there? In order to connect those two cameras like you did at 3:29. Yeah, I used the Linda Lane camera footage. Yeah, from the 1320 dumpster, correct? That's correct. Why didn't you use it between 4 o'clock and 14 seconds and 4:01 and 30 seconds? Wouldn't it have had to drive on Taylor? Isn't it true because there was nothing there at that time frame? No, I didn't have the camera. There was no footage. So it is your testimony to this courtroom, the jury, that Linda Lane dumpster footage is rolling camera. This is not a motion censored camera. This is a continuous feed from 12 o'clock midnight all the way to 6 o'clock. And you're going to tell this jury that after 3:29 and however many seconds, Linda Lane dumpster camera just poof went missing from 3:29 and 50 seconds until 4:06 a.m. Well, Special Agent Hill, did you ask around? Maybe you didn't get the right working copy? Did you ever go and get the original hard drive to take a look at it? Special Agent Hill, why would any of this be needed, right? If you aren't just going with the .404 and 22nd entry car that came in the area at 4:04. 4:05. Because you did this report after you knew that my client had a white Honda Elantra. Isn't that correct? Can you tell that the 405 car, when it's pulling in from 1112, can you tell that that's a white Honda Elantra? It's your report that's saying that all of these sightings are of the same vehicle. Is that correct? And you are aware that a DoorDash driver dropped off food at 3:59 exactly at the same time that you are saying that the suspect vehicle in between this time and this time, as well as this time, is arriving there to drop off the DoorDash that was clocked at 3:59 a.m. Are you aware of that? Also, Detective Special Agent Hill, it was due to Dylan and Bethany's text messages that led you guys to believe that the time of the crime was during a certain period of time, which was finding and seeing that we have a car speeding away at 4:20 a.m. and 47 seconds. Isn't that correct? And this is actually where it all originates from. Is this car is the car that you believe with the perpetrator or perpetrators in it speeding away after hearing the thud at 4:17 and some change, correct? Now, please play the 4:20 video. Officer Hill, from that video, did you identify, or anybody in your department identify, a vehicle, make and model from that video clip? No. In fact, you only took the third, and I don't believe that you did it, but where you provided the information from Detective Immel, Special Agent Immel from the FBI, that the only thing he was associating the vehicle that was leaving at a high rate of speed at 4:20 and some change, 47 seconds, okay, was the third stop light, tail light that comes from the back. And that's actually seen within 7 to 8 vehicles makes and models. Isn't that correct? And isn't it correct that you were unable to track down that vehicle leaving anywhere else? You said that you can see the headlights are seen traveling on south of Walenta, so it's going back, traveling out of Walenta, and you don't have it anywhere else, right? Special Agent Hill, do you know how many white or Elantras, period, cars matching that description live in that area? Did they give you a list of how many? How many cameras are in that area and not a single one of them could find that vehicle leaving out of the area of Moscow? Wouldn't it be a reasonable inference to think that the car didn't leave Moscow? Isn't that a reasonable inference to take? Isn't it true that you were working with Detective Special Agent Nick Ballance in this case? And you decided to not start off with a picture or still or a video clip from Pullman, Washington between the hours of 2:42 and 2:53 a.m. You decided not to put that in your report. Even though a vehicle was identified in the probable cause affidavit, Exhibit A by Payne, why did you leave that out of your report, Special Agent Hill? Isn't it true then you came across information that couldn't have possibly been my client's vehicle based on new information that his cell phone, or it could be existing information that you just didn't put in the probable cause, that my client's cell phone is actually not shut off at 2:47, but instead does not shut off until 2:53. And his handoffs of where he went with the car could not possibly be that of a white Elantra leaving WSU's campus at 2:52 seen on Nevada Street, Nevada Way. Your Honor, can I request can I request for a recess? I got to do some shots at the bar. Miss Mathis needs to go ride the. They're having at the lunch break over there at the Mexican restaurant. We love it over there. They're giving away 2-for-1 tequila shots, and so we like to go over there to the watering hole for a little bit. I mean, we just basically just shredded this ass, and I need a minute. Hey guys, welcome to the Transparency. What's up, my girl? I love the lurkers, baby. Just like it. We will continue with Special Agent Hill, and the absolute. Like I said, if I can do this shit, anybody should be able to do this shit. But it is all day Idaho4 up in her. Okay? So join me back. There's a live that's scheduled at 4 o'clock and 10 o'clock tonight. And we're just going to keep the train rolling, baby. We're just going to keep the train rolling. Thank you so much. Hit the thumbs up on your way out. Much love. Appreciate you.